The Bengaluru Stampede has left an indelible mark on the minds and hearts of people, particularly for those who have lost their loved ones in this tragedy. But the blame game will continue. But let's deep dive into another side of the story here. Is RCB's fan following, which now cuts across generations, is followed by millions of people, has anything to do with it? When did this evolution of RCB from a mere cricket team to a major cultural phenomenon took place? And also, what does the intensity of this IPL franchisee fandom reveal about the changing urban identities in India? For this and much more, we sat down with senior sports journalist Ayaz Memon, who in this candid chat with the Federal spoke about the fanaticism these IPL franchisees carry and much more. Just sit back and listen in. So what was supposed to be a grand celebration for Royal Challengers Bengaluru, the newly crowned IPL 2025 champions, turned out to be a tragedy for many. As of now, over 10 people have been pronounced dead and several injured. And there might be some political drama going on in Bengaluru, but to talk more on this and whether India is shifting towards that IPL-centric approach or that fan-base approach, we have with us senior sports journalist, commentator, writer, and a man who has donned several hats in his career, Ayaz Memon. Thanks a lot, Ayaz, for joining us and welcome to the Federal.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
What is your take on what transpired at M. Chinnaswamy, and could this have been avoided? Maybe, better planning for the celebration?
Well, I mean, you look, in hindsight, yes, certainly it could have been better planned. I mean, the anticipation that there would be such a huge turnout. I think there may be some ground level intelligence telling people who run the state that something like this, instead of anticipating that maybe 40, 50,000 people will turn up for the celebrations, maybe 4 times or 5 times that number will turn up, what should have put them on their guard. So what actually happened, as I understand it, reading from media reports, is that they scrapped the open air bus parade. And in a sense, it's also perhaps true and possible that because that open bus, parade was scrapped, a lot of the people who would have been spending time on the roads actually tried to reach the stadium. So it just added to the rush and the crush and led to this horrific tragedy.
Now, it is clear that what transpired at the M. Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bengaluru on June 4th is out there for everyone to see. But my question is, how do you see this RCB's evolution from a mere cricket team? I mean, like, at the end of the day, it's a franchisee. It's a franchisee. Now, this team has become a major culture phenomenon. And do you feel that has played a major role in what happened out there?
It has. I mean, at the end of the day, these franchises or these leagues which run on city-based, city-centric leagues across the world actually develop over a period of time this kind of fervor, this kind of fanaticism, this kind of no-holds-barred allegiance to the club. And we've seen that happen. I mean, big examples come from football, for instance, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Manchester United, Chelsea, and so on and on. What for us in India is perhaps still a little surprising, though it shouldn't be, because it's been 18 years since the IPL started. So when we think of these football clubs, you're talking of, 50, 60 years vintage. Or if you talk of NBA, which is the National Basketball Association in the US, which commands this kind of following also, or the NFL, those leagues are even older. For us, in a sense, it seems like, hey, when did all this happen? But it's been 18 years is a long period in the case of RCB winning. So the expectations have been growing exponentially, and so has the mass appeal, because they've come thrice in the final, lost all 3 times. They've had one of the biggest, perhaps the most influential player of this generation in cricket playing, spearheading their campaign. That has added to the flavor and the luster of the franchise. And that kind of expectation has just kept growing. So, but what I think we will see is that more of such, allegiance to city-based clubs. Because, for instance, like I can tell you, it's an interesting contrast. The final was between Punjab and RCB. RCB belongs to a city. Punjab belongs to a state. It wasn't a Chandigarh team, So you might sense that degree of fanaticism didn't exist for Punjab. Maybe it will in the future, we don't know. But right now, it was there for RCB. It was evident from the time the season started, the 18th season. From the first
Yeah.
match that they won, and Virat, lots has happened around Virat Kohli's personal career. Winning the our T20 World Cup last year with the Indian
Yeah.
team, and then retiring from Test cricket, and almost it need not be his last hurrah because he hasn't retired from IPL or from ODI cricket, but the sentiment was very strong and the emotions were overflowing.
This outpour of people on the streets of Bengaluru to catch a glimpse of their favorite cricketers. Do you see any parallels with the football clubs as to what happens in England, in Spain, etc.? Or are we still in that developing phase as far as this fanaticism is concerned?
If anything, I think it'll be bigger and larger in India in the context of the population that we have. I mean, when you talk
Yes.
of football teams I mean, you can have perhaps a comparison with Latin American cities because they are also heavily populated. But European
Mhm.
countries and European cities aren't. And they've also had their bouts of, this kind of fanaticism, fan fanaticism spilling over onto the streets. We've had it even when countries have played. I mean, football has been such a powerful influence all over the football world, and especially in Europe. So if there is a
Yeah.
match between Italy and England, there is a huge outpouring in both countries, not just in the city. I think that in India, we see it happen when the Indian cricket team has done well. I mean, just last year we had the T20 World Cup winning team coming to Mumbai, and
Yeah.
I mean, the streets were lined from the airport to Wankhede, and it took hours and hours to reach that place. So yeah, so I mean, this is the kind of culture which I think is still new. It's growing in India, but I think it'll grow rapidly. And therefore, I think one of the things that is emerging from this tragedy is how one should be prepared for
Mm.
making or ensuring that things don't get out of hand. It's not that the administration didn't try to make things put things under control, but I think nobody kind of anticipated the magnitude of what might happen. But that cannot be an excuse for lives lost. So I
Yes.
hope that in future, not just Bangalore but all cities across the country, and not just for one sport. I mean, cricket is predominantly the biggest sport in India, but it could spill over into other sports. So one
Yes.
has to be now on the guard. And I remember that sport following can get extremely passionate. It gets to a passionate a degree of passion where you surrender yourself to that entity, which is the club. It's in a sense, as has been said by many people, sociologists and socio-psychologists, that there is a very high degree of tribalism involved there. The human race works in groups and clusters, and
Mm.
one group wants to be better than the other group. Therefore, one team wants to be better than the other team, and if that team becomes better and wins things, there is a sense of achievement and accolades coming your way, then the outpouring is even greater and the fanaticism or the fan following gets even bigger.
I'll name three franchisees: RCB, CSK, MI, arguably, and also Kolkata to an extent. They have huge fan bases. So now with all these people pouring in together during the time of IPL, the kind of love they share, what does it actually say or tell you in particular about the Indian audience or the Indian sports fans in today's world? Because IPL started around close to 2 decades back. Now the generations have changed. So where do you see this shift happening from a young boy who will possibly be an adult today, and the about the Indian audiences?
Well, I think, see, look, cricket is, by far the biggest sport in India, and the
Yeah.
IPL has actually made it. IPL is the second largest sports property in the world. So you're
Yes.
talking of a scale, and and it's an international event now. Everybody is focusing on the IPL across the cricket world, and not just across the cricket world, across the sporting world. I mean, if Virat
Globe.
Kohli retires from Test cricket, he gets a message from Novak Djokovic, or some other international sports persons who one would
Yeah.
have 20 years back never thought of. And you would say, hey, how did he even know of a Kohli or a Dhoni or a Rohit Sharma? But now,
Yeah.
in that sense, India is in the limelight because of the IPL and because of cricket. And I think what has happened, you mentioned these three franchises. CSK, they had the mega star of that time, which is Mahendra Singh Dhoni, who also is not in that sense a Chennai product. He's come from Ranchi, but he was India captain and high achieving India captain.
Yeah.
KKR also had, for different reasons, that kind of very strong following, which is because of Shah Rukh Khan being the superstar that he is and commands a magnificent following. And then there was Mumbai, where the association was not so much with Rohit Sharma then. Remember, Rohit was playing for Hyderabad, but it was
Yes.
because of Sachin Tendulkar and the fact that a business group like the Ambanis was involved with it. And therefore, I mean, the IPL is, has been an amalgamation of big business and, Bollywood, the razzmatazz and glamour of Bollywood, and obviously extraordinary high octane cricketing skills and performers.
Yes.
So in Virat's case, I think, or Bangalore's case, what happened was very early in the IPL history, you saw Chennai winning the trophy. I think not in the first year, but in the second year. And then, Mumbai having a great sequence where they won 5 trophies, I think in 7 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Chennai have won 5 trophies. So in that sense, the fan sentiment was satiated. So to KKR, they won the title thrice. Now, the only team with a mega star in their midst who had not won, despite people like Chris Gayle and AB de Villiers and Shane Watson, many superstars played for RCB. RCB didn't win. One guy has been with them all through, and therefore I think this was, the sentiment and the bonding was that much stronger. I suspect it's in many ways the fandom of RCB kept growing because also of the loyalty that Virat Kohli showed with the franchise and vice versa. I mean, both could have parted ways. You haven't won me a trophy, we'll offload you. It's happened.
Yeah.
I mean, Shreyas Iyer this year didn't play for KKR, for whom he had won the trophy last year. He played for Punjab. But Virat stuck with the franchise stuck with Virat, where both could have, at least player could have benefited monetarily by going somewhere else. So I think all that kind of cumulative, added up to the what happened was building up of frenzy, which reached its, tumult in the
Yeah.
final, and then winning it just spilled over. Now, when you see in hindsight, everybody is wise, and vision is 2020 in hindsight. One can say that, we could have had this celebration 2 days later. Let things quieten down. Let's
Yeah.
the hot bloodedness that was there, that we must see our champion, and then maybe better organized, etc., etc. But things, sometimes events overtake human human rationalization, as so to speak.
When it comes to RCB fandom against state fandom, like for example, Virat Kohli, like you rightfully pointed out, that he doesn't play for Karnataka, he plays for Delhi. And then there are other stars, superstars also in his era, like someone like the likes of Rahul Dravid, Anil Kumble, or maybe a little further down, KL Rahul, etc., Manish Pandey. So, uh, and also now, how does this kind of pan-India support cutting across region challenges the concept of these teams and players who represent them in domestic tournaments? I'm like the ones who are in playing for Karnataka in domestic cricket do not enjoy that. I'm like, they of course have their fan base, but do not enjoy the kind of fan base which possibly Virat Kohli or AB de Villiers or Chris Gayle has. So has the Indian audience differentiated between the domestic players, that yes, we do like you, love you, but we cannot give you the same aura or the same place like what they give to Virat Kohli or AB de Villiers?
Yeah, I mean, it works at two levels. One is that if you are, I mean, the leagues don't necessarily work only on the basis of players thrown up by that city or even
Yeah.
that state. The professional leagues across sports all over the world. For instance, in national basketball, NBA, Michael Jordan may be born wherever he was and played his early years or intercollegiate wherever he did, but he is what he is because of what he did for Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
LeBron James has been playing for teams on the East Coast and the West Coast, but he's LeBron James. So some of these guys, especially the exceptional performers, end up superseding their antecedents or their place of birth or wherever they grew up, and then they get identified with teams where they perform exceptionally, and both their careers and the team's progress or fortunes move upwards, and then the association gets stronger and stronger, and it just captures the imagination of the people who are of that city or of that state. So while the player may not be from there, Dhoni is not from Chennai, Sachin is. Sachin also had a pan-India presence, and I'm saying this is right now restricted in a sense, or largely covering cricketers, because cricket is such a big, it's just a hugely
More than a
high-profile
sport.
sport.
Yeah.
It's not yet kind of dug deep roots into other sports.
Yeah.
You ask players, name 11 hockey players, they won't even know where they were born. For vast majority of Indians, or footballers for that matter, but for cricketers, they'll know everything about everybody. So that's the nature of Indian, following of sports. I think that may change for other sports over a period of time, because I think we are on the cusp of breakthrough to becoming a very involved sporting nation. I still hesitate from saying we'll become a sporting nation pronto, because that takes a lot more. Certainly in terms, and I've been a strong advocate of this, that unless you open up your uh, sporting systems, so to speak, in sporting support to, if you don't open up to 50% of your population, which is the girls and the women folk, then you can't become a sporting nation. Right now, we have
Right.
seen the women in our country actually doing better than men in sports in many ways,
Yes.
especially in Olympic disciplines. So that argument apart, I think that we need to take, see, sense sport gives you a sense of pride in the achievement of your team, whether it's a state team, your college team, your university team, and you can build from there upwards up to the national team. And you want to be a participant in that. You're not a player. A fan is not the player, but how does he become a participant? And therefore he starts by becoming owing allegiance first to the player, and then the player and the team, and then of course player, team, and whether it is state or country, which is at the apex. And that gets stronger and stronger and gets more muscle as the progress of all three go up. So right now, today, Indians hate to lose in cricket at the
Yeah.
international level. Whether it's not only about playing Pakistan, it's also about playing against Australia. I mean,
Yeah.
we've had major changes in the Indian cricket team because we lost badly to New Zealand and we lost badly to Australia. And so therefore the sentiment where cricket is concerned has already become very strong. So I think that the this kind of feeling, sentiment, and culture is spreading, and there are lots of benefits to it. As I mentioned, a Virat Kohli or a Dhoni or a Tendulkar or a Rohit inspire millions of youngsters to take to the sport, or also Neeraj Chopra. Suddenly India has become a force in javelin, and I think that's great because in sport, in I may just throw in a little philosophy, personal philosophy, that it increases the health and happiness quotient of a country. Both are
Yes.
beneficiaries. Also, sports today, and especially these leagues and clubs and whatever, are huge businesses, and this fandom is running into multi-million dollars. I mean, I was just reading. I think the uh, the profit for the IPL this year maybe 5,000 crore. So there's
Absolutely.
so much, you know, attached to how these players and these teams perform, and obviously the tournament performs. The report from Bengaluru before this tragedy struck was that T-shirts bearing the legend of RCB were all sold out. They're selling like hotcakes. So there is a
Yes.
whole, kind of also a strong economic model, which business model, which comes out, which is also good. Ultimately it all adds up to what I call are the various fragments and components which make up for Indian life. And sport, I think, should be one very crucial and critical factor for reasons I mentioned earlier: health, happiness, pride, etc. We can all thump our chests when India wins the T20 World Cup or Neeraj Chopra wins an Olympic gold, and that's great. But there are now more and more, as we know from yesterday's tragedy, from the tragedy which happened in Bengaluru, that there have to be safeguards in place, knowing that this gush of emotion that may come out can be uncontrollable if not thought of earlier. Maybe it's a horrific thing that has happened, but there's a very, very strong learning to take from it.
Now, do you feel, let's take RCB's case only. Now, do you think in RCB's case, will this future of IPL fandom, will it always be more and more commercialized and more player centric, and also adding the Virat Kohli layer into this? That, like you said, he's in the possibly fag end of his career, couple of years more. So Do you see RCB's brand inseparable from Kohli's legacy, which he has carved out, even to the extent that, sometimes it might overhaul or overawed even team's performance, what we saw for so many years?
I mean, to in the short run it would, but ultimately for the brand to grow, they need to keep, winning becomes important.
Yeah.
You can't have another 18-year gap and say I will, after that, unless you find another player like Kohli who has that
Yeah.
charisma, who has that, just kind of on the psyche of the people, he just implants himself, and that happened because Kohli's peak coincided with him being as an international cricketer,
Yeah.
coincided with him playing for RCB. That he didn't win for RCB for so long became therefore incidental. What he was doing elsewhere just kind of overwhelmed everything else he was doing in life otherwise. So I think it has to run concurrently. What I think will happen, I mean, all other teams will also take lessons from these three, four major franchises that you mentioned: RCB, CSK, Mumbai Indians, KKR, who seem to have humongous fan bases. So the other teams have to do some catching up, and therefore that's a different skill set altogether in their communication, in their performances, in the conduct, interplay between players and fans, and so on. There are many multiple dimensions to it that can influence how the fan base increases. But I think this the tournament itself will grow. See, the IPL and certainly all the franchises therefore uh, depend on the participation of the fans. And if you have the number of fans, then you have participation by companies who will bring in the sponsorship and endorsements, etc., etc. And all of that also is hinged on the state of the economy. So if the country is not doing well economically, the money supply will shorten, and therefore things will also kind of come down. So I think a lot. I mean, these are the dynamics of uh, league sport or multi teams, that whatever, whether you take it football or you take. So what happens is that major sports like basketball or NFL in the US or football globally, especially in Premier League or Bundesliga or whatever, they are so cash rich that they can absorb 5 6 years of 10 years of even recession.
Yeah.
you know they can, because they managed well, and obviously then how they steer it from there is also very important. I think the IPL is reaching that stage in a sense, or has reached, because I mean it's a very cash rich thing, not just because Rishabh Pant gets 27 crore a year, and that's it's a
Mhm.
mind boggling amount. uh, it's just that the tournament itself and what it rests on, the financial muscle, is huge. And unless it is diabolically mismanaged, they will see through all these troughs. If they emerge, the troughs could be economic cycles or some other thing which depresses the economy. So I think that that's the way it works globally.
As you have covered cricket, you have covered other sports over decades now, and I wanted to ask you, especially, but when it comes to the IPL in particular, because I have seen fans, like you rightfully also pointed out, they might not know names of footballers, name of other sports people, even kabaddi, etc. But do you think this shift from national following the national team, even in case of the Indian national cricket team, men's women's both, they might the younger generation, the younger lot, possibly who are born after 2010 or 2015, they have so much of their time, emotion, love, anger invested in IPL franchises. Do you, so that shift from from the national interest to this franchisee based emotion, do you see a downside to it, or do you feel that the in the coming years as well, the fans will support the national team also in the same manner as much as they love or support their
I mean,
franchisees?
there is a threat. There is no question about it. I think that sometimes, but it depends on how these things are maneuvered by the ICC and BCCI. I mean, what I loved after the match was Virat Kohli making a very impassioned and
Yes.
evocative plea to young cricketers, saying, you want to earn respect, go and play Test cricket. He didn't say go and come and play IPL and do what I did. He could have well said that. He's been
Yes.
the biggest amongst the biggest lodestars for the T20 league, but he has focused on on Test cricket. So I think there is a message which has gone out to young cricketers, not just in India but across the world, and not just to young budding cricketers but also to administrators. Come on, guys, wake up and also look at the other formats. So, but from a interest point of view, from a broadcast, I mean, there is no question the IPL has increased cricket following and viewership globally manifold. Before 2008, you didn't find stadiums in India half filled with women and children. It
Yep.
was basically a male domain sport, which in other sports it still is. If you go to football matches in India, you'll find 90% males, maybe 8% children, and 2% women. The IPL has transformed that, and that has brought in a whole new, fresh fandom, so to speak. So that is there. But as I mentioned earlier, there are policy decisions at play when you're talking of Test cricket or ODI cricket. Can they withstand the onslaught from T20 and its instant gratification that you get, and all the sound and drama surrounding it? The surround sound around T20 league, especially the IPL, is too huge and loud and overwhelming to ignore. So that is something that we'll have to wait and see how it pans out. But yes, there is a threat, and I thought it was very good of Virat to plump for a format where he's just retired from, to go out and say, hey, guys, you want to have respect, you want to be proud of what you have done in your life as a cricketer, focus on Test cricket.
Ayaz, are you surprised or happily surprised with the fan base that RCB enjoys? Of course, there are several reasons associated to it. I will not go there, but also because whenever there is a South Indian derby between RCB CSK, you have all this fans zone coming on various social media platforms. So, but sticking to RCB in particular, do you feel or do you believe that RCB has the most craziest fan base in the IPL?
I think it's got the most youthful, very young people following it because of the demographics of the city. This is my reading from the outside. Chennai could be very conservative, though they also have very strong, and demographic changes have taken place there too. Mumbai again has been a bastion, a citadel of cricket. So that legacy. I mean, when you think of Bombay, you think of Vijay Merchant, Sunil Gavaskar, Sachin Tendulkar. The young guns, so to speak, are not necessarily Mumbai guys. They've come from elsewhere.
Yeah.
Some of Jasprit Bumrah has come from Ahmedabad. And the Pandya brothers, they've come from Baroda. So in the case of even Hyderabad has got a very strong young following. So I think, but I think this was intertwined with the fact that RCB also boasted some of the, first of all, the franchise was promoted by one of the most flamboyant guys in the country, that it went into distress and it fell apart, and then they regrouped. The first captain of RCB was Rahul Dravid. Then there was Anil Kumble. Even before you came down to Virat Kohli, I think there was Dan Vettori who was the captain.
Yeah.
So the Virat factor, the Kohli factor, in many ways, there is the Dhoni factor for CSK, and there is the Tendulkar Rohit factor in Mumbai, where the franchises have taken root. Virat gave a more, how do I put it? He was more volatile. He was more in your face. He was brash. He was in many ways the emerging India, the face of emerging India, who was leading the team. And therefore, I think he just commanded that much more fan following independently, irrespective of the franchise. And then he had people around him like AB de Villiers, arguably, or unarguably, for some, the greatest white ball cricketer, perhaps even a Test cricketer of his time. Then they had Chris Gayle. They all were superstars in their own way for the manner in which they played and for their different persona. So I think the personality factor mattered a lot in the case of Virat, ABD, Chris Gayle, all of them coming together at one time and playing for this franchise, and it just took them that much higher in the imagination of the followers.
Certainly, RCB has been put right up there by the imagination of the followers, but no one, and I can repeat that no one wants this unfortunate and tragic incidents to happen. What happened in Chinnaswamy, all the fans who went out there to see a glimpse, or rather to catch a glimpse of their favorite superstars. I mean, this is something that could have been easily avoided. That's all what we have for you in this special video. We thank you, Ayaz, for your time and for your inputs.
Thank you.